Now, the first challenge after you got going, the following summer, you had to deal head on with the issue that the Sunday League was about to come into being the following summer, 69. So there you were in the spring of 68 with your first challenge as an association representing the views of the players. You're the secretary and you have to deal with Lords on the issue of how much extra the players are to be paid for giving up their Sundays every week through the summer. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I told just to backtrack, first class cricket was run by, as I said, the MCC through a committee called the Advisory. The Advisory were meeting at Lords when I was playing at Gravesend against Kent for Somerset. Now, there have been problems because Rossmans, who were great supporters of cricket, wanted to sponsor the new Sunday League. But the problem was they had an agent called Bagnall Harvey who was not au fait with the MCC. The MCC would not do business with him. And so consequently, although I got a representation from his organization for me to support or to continue to support Rossmans, they wouldn't do the one thing I asked, which was to show me a balance sheet of one of their games. I knew why they wouldn't show it, so there was no way they were going to get my support. So
now, this is now, if I could say something here, Fred, people perhaps don't realise this about you. You're a stevedore's son from the East End of London, and you were a fast bowler. You enjoyed your drink, and people have got this image of you. But what perhaps they don't realise is that before you came into cricket, you were going very well in the world of business, earning £2,000 a year with a glove company, losing all that to go down to about £400 a summer playing cricket, and that you've got a very astute business brain, and that when you were approached by Rothmans to say, could the PCA support us in being the sponsors of the Sunday League, you had the business brain to say, can you show me your accounts and tell me where the money's going before I commit myself? And so that's a special element of that, I think. Not everybody might perhaps have been as on the ball in asking that question as you were.
Well, they didn't.
They didn't show the accounts, no.
And I told the MCC that we would support them if every CAT player received a minimum of £400 to play in this new one-day competition. So they knew what we were asking for. So I'm on the field whilst they're having a meeting at Lords, bowling, in fact. And a call comes through.
Gravesend? Gravesend?
Gravesend, yeah. And a call comes through from Lords asking me to speak to Billy Griffith. So I go off, much to the disgust of Bill Alley, and take a call, and it was Billy Griffith. And he said, you'll be pleased to know that my committee have agreed to £200 per CAT player as a remuneration for the extra game. And I said, what makes you think I'd be pleased? I told you the sum that I was prepared to accept on behalf of my players, and that's the sum I will accept. And he wasn't too happy, went back to his committee again, and I went back on the field. I wasn't bowling at the time, but I was called off again, much again to the contention of Bill Alley, And took the call from Billy Griffiths, and he said, the committee have agreed to up the ante to £250. I said, Billy, please do not keep bringing me off the field until you reach £400 a player, please. He was a bit niggly with me, and I went back on the field. This time I got back onto bowling, and I got another call. Bill Ali said, stay off, come back on. And I took the call, and a very angry Billy Griffiths said, the committee have agreed to £400. And later on in life, Terry Bowles, a writer, said it was a pivotal milestone for the very first time professional cricketers had collectively fought their corner and won. And that was the first ever.
Wonderful story. Wonderful. I'm very struck that in your first annual report, which I imagine you wrote, you included the following sentence: cricket is going through a difficult period, and its eventual success can only come from within the game itself, mainly through the constant efforts of, and this then goes into capital letters, of all players at all times to be seen to be enjoying the game.
Yes.
That's got a touch of Fred Rumsey about it, that sentence, I suspect.
Yes. That's how I felt. I felt the game was just, at that time, I felt the game was beginning to deteriorate slightly due to the attitude of the players. Because there was a lot of disgruntled players around with the way the game was going, with particularly 7 days a week and all that. So I tried just to make it clear to them that we were as responsible as the administrators for making the game successful. And in fairness, the one-day cricket did that. It was a one-day cricket that kept first-class cricket going, no doubt about that.
But this is fascinating to me, because we're talking about the whole nonsense of professionals and amateurs, which now from the year 2021 just seems another world completely. You're a docker's son who went to a decent school in the East End of London, Cooper's, and you've got a classlessness about you, and you don't have any feeling of one class being better than another. And you formed a cricketers association which was professional in its outlook, and you played the game with a spirit of joy. I've always been struck in this book, Gentlemen and Players by Michael Marshall, that at the end of the book, he asks Fred Truman to choose an 11 of gentlemen who played like professionals. And here we've got Douglas Jardine, Peter May, Wilf Wooler, Brian Sellers. And then Ted Dexter has chosen a team of players who played as if they were amateurs. And there we've got Colin Milburn, your great friend, Dennis Compton, Godfrey Evans, Butch White, Bomber Wells, and Fred Rumsey, as a man who played the game in an amateur spirit, despite being a professional and being wholly against the whole idea of professionals and amateurs.
Well, I was. It was one thing that I objected to with the MCC, but in recent years, I've mellowed a little on the grounds that they seem to be the only organisation that are satisfied with what cricket we actually play at the moment, without having to introduce of Fred Carno's affair in coloured clothing, bowling 100 balls, which is totally unnecessary. I mean,
Well, let's not go on to that, but we'll don't do that one, Fred. We'll be here all day on that. Let's for a second just stay with the PCA and reflect on where it's got to 50 odd years from you left it when you went to Derbyshire and joined the committee there. Yes. You felt it was incompatible with you being on the union, that you were on the management side at a club. So you did the honourable thing and dropped out of that stage. But you created this baby and it's grown into this great thing. What's your view of it today and what the work it does?
Well, I mean, it can only be one of satisfaction because they've achieved everything I wanted it to achieve. And I think sometimes they get a little bit too close to the current administrators, but in principle, they are representing the players well. The one thing that I feel hasn't happened, which I have been a great advocate of, is that I always believed that we should play the same cricket as every other country in the world and play a pyramid system. We don't. We play a closed shop system, and we're the only country doing it, which means that we pick from far, far less players than West Indies, Australia, India, or you name them all. And because unless you're on the staff of a first-class county, you can forget the idea that you'll reach England. Well, there's a limit. I mean, there are only so many. There are only 18 first-class sides. So you're only talking around 200 people playing first-class cricket at one time. And some of them, a lot of them, are taking important berths, are overseas players. So we don't pick from anywhere near the talent that we've got in this country. And when I heard that there was going to be a new tournament, I was quite pleased initially because I thought it would bring in other players, not reduce the amount of first-class players that play in it and bring in more overseas players. So I think that was a retrograde step.
Right. Now, I want to leave time. We're rushing through the hour, and I want to leave a little bit of time for the other great innovation that you created, which I think started when Somerset got to the Gillette Cup final in 1967. And according to your book, there was no particular payment to the players by the county for the fact that you'd got to this final, and you took the matter into your own hands and created this booklet, Somerset Up for the Cup.
Yeah, I couldn't find it, by the way.
I can't find my copy.
Yes, what I did, all I did that for was to earn some more money for the players. And we did. I think every player who played in the Gillette Cup got £100, which was a lot of money in those days.
Now, what you've done is you've created a booklet and you've got a lot of advertising into it and been selling it in the run-up to the cup final. Yeah. And how easy, because county cricket wasn't really doing much in the way of sponsorship and advertising, how easy was it to get that advertising?
Falling off a log. Literally. All I did was ask people and they all agreed. I don't think anyone I asked refused.
And
I got the advertising all in one afternoon.
Really? Just because you had a background in advertising from your time with the glove company, presumably?
Not only that, it was there. It was waiting to be taken. There are a hell of a lot of businesses would be quite happy to support cricket and nobody had been asking them.
Yes.
As simple as that.
And that winter, you put it to Somerset that you could do that job for that winter of 67-8, a
Yeah.
job that no other county had
No.
seen fit to create. So how did that work?
Well, what they did, I suggested to them that they paid me out of what I earned, and we were very successful. I mean, anything that I could raise funds for, we raised funds for. It's like being in the army when they tell you to paint everything. So you paint everything that doesn't move. And, so it was on that basis, I asked every company that I knew a principal in the company was involved with the cricket, and suggested a whole series of ideas to them, like sponsoring a match, sponsoring teas, sponsoring lunches, sponsor boards on the ground, all based on sponsorship primarily, where the company could get their advertising back as part of their expense. And sponsoring balls. and it worked. We raised quite a lot of money that year. So I then actually put a full proposition. Now, as I put that proposition to Somerset, so Surrey appointed a PR. He was a man who used to work for, I've forgotten his name, but he worked for Rossman's. And they appointed that winter after I'd been appointed summer before. And then they had about 4 meetings without coming to a conclusion. And in the end, Derbyshire advertised for a public relations fundraiser. So I applied for that and I got that.
Somerset to Derbyshire, that's quite a culture shift, isn't it? Different kind of dressing room, I imagine.
Very much.
And you played, part of the deal was you played the Sunday League, didn't you?
I did.
And one year you had somebody bowling at the other end who had played for another county previously as well.
Yeah, F.S. Truman. I got him to come and play for Derbyshire. And we opened the bowling, a pair of us, and Mike Carey, who used to write, I think it was The Guardian, said on the Monday, it was less like the John Player League, more like all our yesterdays.
Well, I came up with this extraordinary statistic. I found it out when I was doing Tom Cartwright's book, that out of everybody in the whole history of one-day cricket who's bowled 400 or more overs, the four most economical bowlers, all with an average of under 3 runs per over, were 4th place Joel Garner, 3rd place Tom Cartwright, 2nd place Vincent van der Bijl, and the most economical bowler in the history of one-day cricket, F.E. Rumsey.
Yes.
But you weren't bowling at full pace in that. You were bowling off a short run, weren't you? And
yes, a 15-yarder. It was an entire, you had to, when you reduced to 15 yards, it was a different action, different everything. And, but you see, I played that game with negativity in mind. I wasn't going to be fodder for the batsmen. They're going to have to earn it. And I used to, therefore, I used to concentrate on every ball I bowled, not an over. Playing first-class cricket and Test cricket, you bowl an over with thought in mind, but not in one-day cricket. You bowl to stop the batsman scoring. That was it.
Yes, yes. Well, let's stay with your work as a PR man for Derbyshire, because you, the Sunday League from the first season in 1969 was televised every afternoon, every Sunday afternoon, all afternoon. And one of the very early games was the first home game that Derbyshire played at the county ground. So tell us about how you went about getting some advertising for that.
Before I do that, before we leave Somerset, I would like to tell you all a story, because this was a true story, and it was one of my favourites. When I left Somerset to join Derbyshire,
Ah, yes.
so too did Bill Alley. Bill Alley was fired by Derbyshire,
Somerset.
by Somerset the same year. Now, he got his letter of doom, was about a 5 or 6 copy, which you could hardly read. The old carbons had run out a bit, which other people had got. Now, this is a man who played for them for 10 years, got 3,000 one year, 2,100 wickets another, 2,000 again, and that's the way you dismiss him. Well, I was very angry. And at the time, I was the union representative. And I thought, I want to take this matter up with the club. So I had a meeting with Bill, and I said, this is disgusting, Bill. He said, I know, but what the hell, you know, why do I care? I'm finished. So I said, well, it would be nice for them to have written you a lovely letter and not this sort of thing. He said, oh, I'm going anyway. So I said, well, I know that. He said, well, I've reached a stage where my eyes have gone, so I'm going to take up umpiring.
Oh, lovely. Right, let's come back to this first,
Yes.
The first Sunday League game at the Derby County Ground.
Yes, there was a company in Chesterfield called Kennings. They dealt with motor cars, and they were quite a big company. And knowing that their managing director, or chairman even, was keen on cricket, I approached them to put a couple of hoardings around the ground. And he said, well, what benefit will it be to me? And I said, well, there's going to be televised matches, and you'll get some exposure on television and exposure from people who go there. And these matches are going to be well supported. So he reluctantly agreed to take 2 of these signs. So come the first television game, I'd put the signs either side of the sight screen, facing the cameras. Because in those days, they didn't have cameras both ends. And so it then started raining. And
well, the BBC weren't happy with them being there, were they?
Well, it started raining, and then the BBC arrived. And at lunchtime, the producer of the programme said to me, those Kenning signs are much too close to the sight screen. All I can see is Kennings in my shot. You'll have to move them a sight screen length away. I said, yeah, I'll do that when it stops raining. Well, it didn't stop raining. Not then, before. So they took a still picture of the sight screen, the Kenning signs, and put it up on television. It was up all afternoon. That was up for 4+ hours. And they didn't take it down. I think we did end up playing a bit right late on in the evening. And the following morning, I got a phone call from Mr. Kennings, who was over the moon. Oh, what a great idea. Mr. God, I saw my signs. So I was the greatest thing since God made
Wonderful, wonderful story. Well, we're coming to the end of the hour, and we've not touched on your pioneering work as a travel business and the Caribbean cricket tournament you created. And you were the founder of the first inter-island football tournament, which you designed. And you did sterling work for many years for the Lord's Taverners. But I think people are going to have to read the book if they want to know about that. So let's just finish with one last story. We'll go back to the beginning of the talk, the joy of being a fast bowler. Let's take you back to Taunton. I think it's the quarter-final of the Gillette Cup in 1964, Somerset against Sussex. Sussex, the holders in the first year, coming down to Taunton, big crowd gathering for the game. The night before, you're having a quiet drink in a pub nearby, aren't you?
Yes, which was my want. I mean, it was my local. Anyway, I'm in the pub, and some Sussex players. Now, I'd only been at Somerset for a year, and I didn't play against Sussex the previous year, so I didn't know the Sussex players very well at all. Anyway, the players came into the bar, and I was going to make myself known. And then I heard my name mentioned. Somebody said, "How quick is Fred Rumsey?" Well, they had an opening bat called Langridge, and
Richard Langridge.
And he said, "Oh, he runs quicker than he bowls." And then they continued talking about me for a bit. So I thought, oh, I'm not going to introduce myself now. So I had my drink and cleared off. The following day, we lost the toss, and the ground had about 10,000 people. I mean, I've never seen so many people in the Taunton ground at that time. And I was opening a bowling, and Langridge was opening a batting. So he came in, I bowled the first ball, and he'd only picked the bat up before his middle stump went cartwheeling to the keeper. There was absolute silence in the ground, what felt like an eternity. But then this enormous roar, wonderful. And he had to pass me on the way, and I couldn't resist it. As he got level with me, I said, "You know, you never knew how fast I could run."
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, that was worth changing from being a slow bowling for that moment, wasn't it?
I did enjoy it. I must admit.
Well, that's a wonderful hour, Fred. We've covered a few topics. There's so many more we could have done. And we're going to let one or two people in now to say their piece, aren't we?